All right, well, my name is Erin Mills and I am an alcoholic addict. I was brought up in a really good family, Irish Catholic family, good morals. Went to Catholic education for 8 years. Definitely was instilled God in my life, and I think for a lot of us, especially for me, I was just born with those isms where I always wanted more no matter what it was. I can remember at a very young age I had stomach issues, and I would try to drink the Pepto-Bismol like it was candy or something. To me it tasted good and I wanted more. Those are just the little things I can remember as a child, that now that I have some sobriety, I realize were, part of addiction. I was brought up in Stowe, Ohio. Like I said, had a really good life. When I began high school is when things started to change for me. I did lose my dad at a young age, so that was something, and it was very quick. He went in for cancer. I was 15 and he died in 4 days, so that was something I never really knew how to deal with as a child. When I got to high school, I can just remember walking into high school and feeling like I had arrived, that I could find the party people and do the things I wanted to do, because in Catholic education you're kind of sheltered a little more. My first drug was marijuana at 16, and alcohol both at 16. First time I ever drank was a blackout drunk. So I was a blackout drunk from the beginning. I never drank to just have a couple. I drank to excess always. And marijuana became my best friend up until the last 16 months. And it was an everyday thing. And I dabbled in everything throughout high school. And I think when things started to turn for me was my late 20s. I got into prescription pills, and not because I had an injury or anything, but because I wanted to do them. Opiates is a different world. It just is, and addiction comes really quick with opiates. Not that I don't think I was an addict from the beginning, because I was. I was definitely an alcoholic for a long, long time before I was an addict. For me, it doesn't matter what I put in me. I can put too much Red Bull in me. It doesn't matter what you put in me. I can do it to excess. In the early 2000s, I was dating a guy, and I was kind of brought into the opiate world pretty big. It was something I did here and there, not all the time. Didn't have to have it. Didn't need it to function. And he ended up dying of a drug overdose. And for me, I used that pain, that hurt, and that anger for the next 8 years as a reason to use. It turned real bad. My alcoholism got out of control at that point, where I was drinking on probably 4 or 5 times a week to excess always. Still holding a job and things of that nature, but I was definitely a full-blown alcoholic at that point, because when he passed away, I had sworn off opiates in my head. I'm not going to do those, because obviously somehow you die from them. Because I thought for a long time that as long as they were prescription pills, it was coming from a doctor, it couldn't kill you. So I had sworn them off for quite some time, and in 2010, I reconnected with an old boyfriend from high school, and he was brought back into my life, and I knew it wasn't good news. Everyone around me knew it wasn't good news, because 6 months into that relationship, I realized that he was a full-blown heroin addict, and it wasn't long before I was introduced to that world again, and I, at that point, became a heroin addict from 2010 till probably mid-2012. and things got real bad. It wasn't a good relationship, physically, mentally, abusive, emotionally. You know, for me, it probably had me the first time I did it, to the point where the next day, if I didn't have it, I was physically sick. And the mental obsession over it is just crazy. And it becomes a full-time job for, I think, everyone in that world. You just start, it's a full-time job to just be well, to get through what, you know, your everyday duties, whether it's a job or what you're doing. In 2012, I remember was not living in a functioning household. Bathroom didn't work, things of that nature. Like, and that was okay with me, because in my addict's head, like, that was normal. Like, that's what you just do in this world, I guess. And I can just remember looking in the mirror, and I didn't recognize myself, and I didn't know what else to do. But I knew that, like, my family hadn't cut all their ties. You know, they were still in my life, especially my mom, who is pretty much my biggest enabler. God love her. She, you know, she just loves us, you know, to death. I remember calling home to her, and I sort of got honest. I told her I was addicted to opiates. I did not tell her about the heroin, and that I had a solution in my head. And my solution was to get on maintenance medication called Suboxone. And for me, it was good and bad. It was bad because I didn't use it as a tool. That brought me into a 12-step program to where seeds were planted, and I knew that there was a better way. But I couldn't get rid of those old people, places, and things. And if you can't do that, it just sucks you back in. So it wasn't long before I wasn't doing things right on the medication. 6 months into it, I became pregnant with my son. And when I say it was good for me, that's why I say it was good for me, because I do believe to this day, if I did not have that my son would have been born addicted to heroin. And, you know, it saved him from some issues as far as that goes. But I will tell you that 80% of these babies are born on maintenance medication, are born physically addicted to an opiate, because it's called an opioid, but it's basically an opiate, because they do come out sick, and he was one of them, and he suffered for 5 weeks in the NICU. And, you know, I also, you know, my alcoholic addict head had told me since I was so sick through this pregnancy, that it was okay to smoke pot the whole time. And so, you know, it wasn't long before they caught on to that at the hospital. And, you know, when they come in and put a urine specimen cup on your infant, it's, for a mother, it takes you to a place you just couldn't imagine. Like, it's heartbreaking. And that the fact that I did that to him, you know, to this day, it breaks my heart. To watch your infant child go through drug withdrawal because of you is heartbreaking. But it wasn't enough, you know, because for some reason I didn't want to stop. And I wish it would have been enough. But that's like part of my message. Like, I just want people to know that you can't get sober for anyone but you. You can't. So I had my first case with Child and Services when he was born for about 6 months. When he was about 6-7 months old, they decided to let me go, because I did exactly what they asked of me. I got a job. I went to IOP at St. Thomas. I passed, you know, drug screens. I was still on the Suboxone at this time. And, you know, I had no intentions of staying sober. You know, I just wanted my baby back. You know, luckily I have a fantastic family that has stepped in, and was great as far as, having supervised visits and stuff like that. I was still able to live in the home with them. So they let me go, and it wasn't 4 months later that I was in trouble again. But I was using, again, not too long after that. And, once you're off and running back into that world and into that life, it's chaotic real quick. And I think I liked the chaos too of it. It's almost like a rush, like the chaos of the life. I knew one of my biggest problems was letting go of the people that I shouldn't be around, and one of those was my son's father. And because he is also an active addiction, and I knew if I couldn't let go of that I couldn't get sober. And at the time I couldn't let go of it because all I wanted was my son to have a father. Whether he wasn't a good dad or not, I wanted him to have a father. So in March of 2014, like I said, I was brought up in the church, and I turned my back on God a long time ago, and I had started to kind of let him back in before this happened, just to the point where I just knew something had to change. And so I say God stepped in and did for me what I could not do for myself, and that was in the form of the Akron Police Department. And they stepped in, and I had my child in my car, and multiple, or not multiple, but drugs, and they took my son right away and took me, but there were, there's just so much to that story that it had to be something bigger than me saving me that day. My child slept through the whole thing. He didn't witness me getting arrested, even though he was only a year old. So those are good things. I knew for me, I wasn't going to stay sober without treatment. They fought to keep me in drug court. They wanted to have me in that program really bad, and my lawyer fought for treatment because I knew I was not, I couldn't do it. I needed those tools. I needed some counseling. I needed to get rid of a lot of baggage that was going on deep inside me, outside of the drugs. So I we finally got treatment approved, and I went to IBH, Interval Brotherhood, and I'll tell you what, that place changed my life. I was there for 78 days. And the treatment you get there is amazing. I'm not, I have so much gratitude for that place. Just the counseling alone, and like when I got graduated from there, which I never graduated high school, so to receive a certificate was pretty big for me. Like, I never complete anything in my life. So that was pretty cool, and I can remember just leaving all that baggage there. I left it there, and I didn't carry it outside those gates when I left. And that was a big part of starting my journey on my own, because I knew if I kept any of that, including my son's father in my life, that it was not going to stay the way it was. I went to sober living for 4 months. Luckily, when my son was taken from me, my sister stood up and took temporary custody, her and her husband, and that was huge, because most children that go into foster care, you don't get to see him the way I saw him. He was brought to me in treatment every week to visit on family day. When I got out and was in sober living, I got to go every night and do dinner and bath and bed, and just the things that a mom should be doing, that if your child's in foster care, you don't usually get to do. So that was a huge blessing to me, and I could never repay them for doing that and giving me this time to get sober and learn to be a sober mom. In February, I was doing all the right things. I mean, I was urine tested multiple times a week. I was required, treatment after treatment, counseling, things of that nature. And I did it all. And I wasn't doing it to get custody of my kid back this time. I was doing it because I wanted to be sober. And I was working this 12-step program the way it was supposed to be worked, and taking suggestions and, doing what people had told me to do the first time, but I couldn't, It's been an amazing journey. In February of 2015, I regained full custody of my son back. That's quite a gift. I was given an award in April through Children's Services in Summit County for making a difference in a child's life, which to this day I look back and I'm like, I'm the same person that was the heroin addict on the side of the street that you were like, you can't be a mom, And that's just, it's amazing what a 12-step program can do to change your life and what sobriety can do. It's been an amazing journey. It really has. I think what I would like people struggling to know is that there's hope. When you feel like there's no hope, there's people out there that are willing to help. We are blessed to live in Akron, Ohio, where there is so much help that, it's seizing out of the walls. There's so much help out there. You just have to ask for it. And I would like, mothers especially to know that you're not a bad mother. You're just the best mother you know to be, and things get better, I'm expecting my second child, which I never thought would happen. And with a really good man. And, for me, that's a gift. That's a gift straight from God. Every child is a gift from God, but I get to do it the right way. I get to do it sober. Hopefully everything goes well and I take that baby home in 3 days. What a gift that is. But sobriety is way better than anything I ever imagined. My worst day sober is way better than my best day high. I don't know. I love being sober, and I do a lot for people in treatment. I go pick them up for rides and things of that nature, and that's the best part about sobriety, is helping another person to understand and to get this. And I just hope that we can start saving more lives and stop not being so silent about this epidemic, because I'm really sick of watching people die. The youngest one I know of just died last week, 22 years old. I think if we talk more about the recovery aspect of it and that it is possible. I never thought it was possible for me to not put one in me every day to function, but recovery is possible. And if just one person can see, through my story that it's possible, then I've done something right today,